About 2 weeks ago, I was a few thousand miles away from the office. So, I'm currently on vacation in Iceland, and I decided to do a little bit of work. A day before I left for my trip, I was able to get my hands on the new DJI Mavic 2. The unit I had with me was the Mavic 2 Pro, but we'll cover both the Pro and the Zoom in this video. I attempted to film this in Iceland, but the audio, yeah, it wasn't great. But now we're doing this in the studio, which works out better since I had more time to test out all of the new and/or upgraded features too. Now with over 8 hours of flight time with two Mavic 2s, I'm ready to tell you why these drones are changing aerial photography. The new Mavic 2 Pro and Zoom are slightly bigger than the old Mavic Pro Platinum. You really won't notice the difference at first, but what you will notice that it is heavier than what you'd expect. Otherwise, you're looking at the same foldable design with your original Mavic, which makes it a good portable drone. It also has the same props found in the Mavic Pro Platinum, meaning this drone is a relatively quiet one. The difference between these two is A, sensor size, and B, the Zoom has, well, zoom. Real optical zoom that lets you get twice as close without losing quality. Lastly, the gimbal in both seems to be really robust, so you might get away with crashing this thing. That's something I really don't have an interest in testing, but there are plenty of other YouTubers who love destroying gadgets for your pleasure. Filming with the Pro has been great, from connectivity, various modes, and most importantly, superb image quality. The 1-inch CMOS sensor with Hasselblad optics doesn't make a big difference when it comes to video and photo quality. Ability to shoot 10-bit 4K video in D-Log truly helps to maximize what you get out of it. The Zoom, on the other hand, has a smaller sensor and it doesn't have a true flat profile. It does have Cine-like, which is what we saw in the Mavic Air, but it just doesn't retain the same amount of data. You should be aware that, however, the only way to shoot D-Log on the Pro is if you're shooting in H.265, which in theory is a better compression system, but in practice isn't widely adopted yet. Reviewing footage with Premiere on my relatively fast MacBook Pro has been a real struggle, and I had to create proxies for all of my files. The Mavic 2 Pro is the first DJI drone with HDR, and it does make some difference in exposure for certain scenes, but truthfully, D-Log looks just better to me. Also, quick note, I tend to leave my white balance to auto just to see what the camera chooses, and to me, it seems to be a bit on the warmer side, although the colors do look very accurate. Second note, I didn't have neutral density filters for this drone, so some shots didn't come out as good as they could have. DJI says the NDs are coming for both units, but it'd be a lot easier if those were just built in from the start. Alright, let's dissect D-Log footage a bit more. When you're shooting in very low ISO, 100 or 200, you'll get really clean footage, no noticeable noise. Even when you're zoomed in, you're still getting very good results. When bumping up the ISO, obviously more noise is introduced, especially in the shadows. It's more noise than you'd expect from this drone, but it's still not as bad as what you get from the smaller sensor that's on the Mavic 2 Zoom. Nevertheless, footage that you get on the Mavic 2 Pro is the best you can get from a drone of this size. One more quick note. Unlike the Phantom 4 Pro V2, which can shoot 4K at 60 frames per second, the Mavic 2 Pro can shoot 4K up to 30. Not a deal breaker for me since I tend to shoot at 24 frames, and both can shoot slow-mo at 120 frames at 1080p. And I only mention this so I can have an excuse to put this clip in the video. Another new mode you get is Hyperlapse. I do love how it's implemented in the software. You choose your interval and the total runtime of the clip. The Mavic does the rest. Video is out of stitch on your phone and it's ready to use. Or close to it. Unfortunately, the Hyperlapse footage isn't stabilized, so it's too shaky and basically unusable. On a few occasions, it even randomly changed my exposure setting. Either way, there's an option to save photos individually, so more often than not, I'll just process those myself in After Effects. And lastly, there's the Dolly Zoom, which you obviously get on the Zoom model. It lets you make cool shots like this, but only in 1080p, not 4K, sorry. The Pro's new sensor can shoot 20 megapixel photos, and as someone who shoots photos with this drone more often than video, it's a joy to use. And they're a big step up from what we had before. Not only by pixel size, but color just seems very accurate to what you see in real life. This isn't the case with the Zoom. Photos look great, even though they're 12 megapixels, but once they start editing the raw files, the colors just didn't look as true. On both drones, you'll find all the same shooting modes you had before: pano, vertical pano, 360 spherical photos, And on the zoom, you get this mode called super resolution. It takes 9 separate photos, which then stitches together into one massive 48 megapixel image. And the differences are evident. And last thing when it comes to photos is the new Hyperlight mode, which supposedly helps with noise reduction in lower light situations. Here are 3 photos shot in JPEG, Hyperlight, and HDR. To me, there's a slight improvement, but all of the 3 examples shot at 1600 ISO look pretty noisy. If anything, Hyperlight mode added a bit of chromatic aberration, although that is an easy fix. When it comes to photos, deciding between these two can be tough. It may seem like the Pro is better on paper because it has a bigger sensor, but the Zoom has a number of features that you just don't get with the Pro. The zoom and super resolution. At the end of the day, it might come down to price. All right, that was a lot, but we still have a few things left to cover. I'm just gonna go through this real quickly. First one, OcuSync 2. Absolutely loved it. Can comfortably say that this is the first time I haven't had a single interference with signal. Even when I maybe flew it further than I was allowed. No issues there whatsoever. It even gives me 1080p previews and caching right on the phone, so I can edit there, but I really don't see myself ever doing that. Second one, battery life. Advertised 31 minutes of flight seems plausible under perfect conditions, but most I got out of it comfortably was 24 minutes, just because I didn't want to find myself in a situation where I lose battery mid-flight. Which actually happened once, a different drone. I'll tell you the story in the end card. Third one, remote control. Same old design you found in the original Mavic and Mavic Air, plus the screen, although there's a switch on the side which lets you toggle between sport, program, and tripod mode. And I'm happy to report that DJI's greatest invention ever is back. Removable joysticks. Gosh, I love those things. Are we done here?
You wanted to mention sensors and tracking.
Right. Okay. First, sensors. There are 2 new sensors on this drone, the side sensors, which help you when you're tracking a subject. Those are only active in tripod mode and when you're using active track. There's also a pair of LED lights at the bottom of the drone, which help with the bottom sensors and landing in low light conditions. Whatever. The Mavic 2s now also have 3D mapping feature that helps with predicting where a person or a car would go in the case they're obstructed by an overhead object. The drone was good at following me around and avoiding objects, but it wasn't super fluid and was a little bit jerky when I went behind a pillar. I'm excited to see how this gets improved over time. Alright, here's the bottom line. A lot of the updates that we got with the new Mavics are updates you'd expect. Better obstacle avoidance, more sensors, better connectivity, quieter operation, and yeah, I guess longer battery life. But what really stands out is how these 2 new drones are elevating aerial photography and videography. The Pro gives you noticeably better video quality than you could ever get with a drone of this size, while the Zoom gives you new tools to completely change how your drone photography looks. These new drones make you think differently about the creative possibilities you can get out of your drone. In addition to that, these drones just work great, so you don't have to worry about connectivity, stability, crashing, or any other headaches that you used to have to deal with when flying a drone. Instead, you can just focus on getting the shot. All right, I promised you a story earlier, so here we go real fast. I was flying my Mavic Air, which is white, by the way. It was winter. It ran out of battery, fell into the forest. I went looking for it in the snow, which was up to my knees. It took 2 hours to find, but apparently it also has like Find My Drone feature, so it pings sound. It didn't really help that much, but I found it.